The first lesson for part 2 is going to show you how to describe a restaurant or a place. So, after part 1, the examiner will show you a card. On the card there will be some instructions. The examiner will read it to you, and then the examiner will be quiet for 60 seconds, 1 minute. And in this minute you can write some notes. And then you must speak for a minimum of 1 minute and an ideal maximum of 2 minutes. So, what do the cards look like? Here is an example. Talk for 1 to 2 minutes about a restaurant you have been to. You should say when you went, who you went with, what you ate, and why this restaurant was memorable. So you can't waste any time. You have to think very quickly about the restaurant experience in the past. Think about who was with you, visualize it in your mind. Try to think of good words to describe the food: tasty, spicy, delicious, not cooked very well, overdone, burnt. Because the restaurant might be memorable for a bad reason, but be descriptive. This card is about a restaurant, a place. And I just want to, at the beginning of part 2, encourage you to practice according to 3 ideas: events, people, and places. Here is a table to help you, or to guide you, I should say. So, when you talk about events, they are usually in the past, so you can practice past tense narrative. When you talk about people, the examiner wants to hear very descriptive language. And same for when you talk about places or things. Sometimes they will ask you to describe an object or a website. So remember this card? Have you got any ideas yet? I want to show you one way that I teach students to approach the card. In the middle of your notes, write the name of the restaurant. Then you should move to this part, when, and just write a few notes for when you went to the restaurant. Then you want to write about who, because that's the next thing, and be specific. Write sister, brother, or friend Michael. Be specific. What's next? What you ate. So then you write about the food. Be specific. I've written garlic bread, spaghetti with meat sauce. I didn't eat dessert. And what's the final thing? Why was this restaurant memorable? Maybe something happened during this meal. Maybe you got the telephone number of a beautiful waitress. Try to think about why you chose this restaurant. And don't forget, then you need to link between the points. So let me go back here. See these arrows? See the red arrows? What do you say here? And what do you say in between these points? So here are some linking techniques. Now, I'm going to read you my answer. It's a model answer, so I'm reading, but just listen for how I link between the points. I went to an Italian restaurant recently with my family. I can't remember the name, but it's near my parents' house. We arrived at the restaurant at about 7 p.m. I'd say we were there for a couple of hours before we went back to my parents' house for some dessert and coffee. We might have left by 9:30 p.m. As I've already mentioned, I went there with my family. To be specific, There was my mum, my dad, my 2 brothers, and me, of course. When we first got there, we had some garlic bread. Then for the main course, on the Italian menu, they say prima piatti or something like that, I ordered spaghetti in a typical meat sauce with some cheese on the side. My mum always orders the chicken, so we laughed when she told the waiter what she wanted. And why was this night and this restaurant so memorable? Well, we went there for a special reason. And that was that I had just graduated, so my family surprised me with a special gift. It was just a photo of us all together, but it was especially framed. Also, the restaurant has really nice atmosphere. The service is excellent and the food is delicious. I would definitely go there again. Did you hear some of the linking words like to be specific? As I've already mentioned, also, and why was this night so memorable? So, remember, in the 60 seconds, use the time well to make some notes, and then think about how you can link between those circles. So that was describing a restaurant. Let's practice a different one, describing a place. Imagine you get this card. Describe a place of natural beauty. You should say where it is, when you went there, what you did there, and say what makes this place particularly beautiful. Here are some hints over here. You need many adjectives and adverbs. You need the correct time expression. You need correct location expressions. And my suggestion is to use relative clauses to add information. So before I give you my model, have you got in your mind a place of natural beauty? Can you describe where it is? Can you describe when you went there? Can you describe all the activities you did or what you saw? And then lastly, can you give lots of description for why this place is so beautiful to you? Here is my example. Let's go. I'd like to tell you about Fraser Island. It's a completely sand island off the east coast of Australia. From memory, I think the state is Queensland. I went there with a tour group from my English school. It was about 4 hours north of my school. But I didn't mind the journey because when I got there, I was blown away. It was summertime, so that was the only downside. There were too many tourists. We only stayed for 1 night, but in those 2 days we did some sandboarding, which is sliding really fast down a sandy hillside. We went swimming, we saw dolphins in the sea, we drove along this massive long beach in our 4-wheel drive, and we sat in these rock pools called the champagne pools. I think you can guess why. The ocean water rushes into the little pools and there are many bubbles. Here we've got location description, we've got time. I was there for 1 night. It was 4 hours north of my school. We've got all the activities, sandboarding, swimming. Did you see the relative clause? So I really hope you can do a similar thing with your answer. And the last thing was, this island is particularly beautiful because it has no development on it. Most of it is still pure and natural. So I had never experienced such an unspoilt place before, let alone a place with wild animals. That was the only scary part, the wild dogs. So remember, under the 3 points, there is a 4th point. where you have to say why you remember this place or why this person is so important to you. So that's why this student says this island is particularly beautiful. And notice these excellent linking words, because, so, let alone, which you use for emphasis. And there are the champagne pools on Fraser Island. What about if you had to describe a city? Or what if the examiner changes the verb tense? This is a city you already know. This one is a city you would like to go to, so you have to speak about it in the future, as well as describing its general appearance. And this is a different one. Describe a place you have been to where you listened to some music. So there are 3 more that you can practice. My final tips are: visualize the place. If she asks you about a meal, a restaurant, or a place, see it in your mind. Use descriptive language. Always introduce the topic. And use linking words to move between the points on the card. You don't always have to do this, but for at least 2 times you should show the examiner your skill. So thank you very much for watching this video. I want to remind you I also have writing video lessons which you can buy on the website. Keep going to the next lesson. We keep practicing part 2.